everything I've seen is like, oh, these are the thoughts I've been having the last 10 years. I just didn't know anyone else thought this way. I'd never seen anyone put it in those terms of kind of the framework of the era of outbound, then inbound, and now nearbound. That's just completely aligned with my intuitive thoughts of how marketing has just felt over the last 10 years. And finally, I saw someone actually give a label to it. So it all makes perfect sense. Because, it's just how we've done business. There wasn't any books written about it.
I'm not crazy moment. Like, yeah, I'm not crazy.
Oh, so other people are actually kind of like catching on to this too.
We're back at last. Welcome to the Nearbound podcast. That's Jared's typical opener. So, Jared, I apologize if I got that wrong. I probably did. I'm going solo today as the host. I'm not going solo in the episode. I got my man Tim Chermak with me. You are very hyped about the Minnesota Timberwolves, I can see.
I am pretty excited.
For good reason.
Yep.
For good reason. They're exciting. Anthony Edwards may be the last hope for the era of basketball that old guys like you and I long for.
Really of men in America.
Yeah, there we go. Of killers out there on the court. Okay, so I'm going to give Tim a little bit of a lengthy introduction / preamble to set this up. So if you had to just sit there and listen to me talk for a couple minutes, do you think you can handle that? I mean, you're used to that. We've been friends for a long time. So Tim is the founder of Platform Marketing as well as John Galt Mortgage Company, a newer company. But the reason I want to have Tim on this show, he is selling to realtors. So it is B2B in a way, but it's more of kind of a software plus services, like sort of plus agency model for realtors, helping them grow their business. But Tim, what you do that is so incredible, and I think this is instinctive or just from trial and error. Maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you read a bunch of books and got a bunch of theories on it, but you do nearbound marketing better than almost anyone, and you have been for years before there was a name for it. And a lot of the things that you're doing, the principles you're employing, are things that are just recently, in the last couple of years, really hot, really big topics in the B2B SaaS world. Things like demand creation and dark funnel and mapping your process to the buyer's journey instead of trying to cram them through a funnel, surrounding them with voices they trust. So the way that I kind of see your model is it's so interesting because, what is nearbound? What is the who economy? It's recognition of the fact that what other people say about you is more important than what you say about yourself when it comes to winning over buyers. And you kind of tap into this in a number of ways. So you have this sort of demand creation angle, which is let's understand how buyers actually buy and let's work on their buying cycle instead of focusing all of our marketing efforts on the point of conversion, the moment when they're like, okay, I'm ready to buy. And then you're trying to like get in front of them and compete with everyone else. You call it, guys like Chris Walker who are big in the B2B SaaS space call it demand creation. You call it, you have a book by this name, high hanging fruit. The idea of like, don't go for the people right when they're about to buy. That's when everybody's trying to fight for them. Cultivate trust with them for months or even years before they're ready to buy so that when they are ready to buy, it's a no-brainer that they're going to go with you. That's an amazing principle that I've seen you employ. And then how do you cultivate that trust? Nearbound. You find their ecosystem, their community, the voices and influences around them, and you reach them with and through those. You tap into the trust they already have with others. And this is kind of what you're helping realtors do in such an incredible way. So many other principles of nearbound marketing, how it's about writing content in other people's voice more than your own, and all these things we can get into tactically. But that's the frame up of why I was like, Tim, you got to come on the Nearbound podcast. Is that a fair-ish representation of how you do business?
Yeah, I think why I was excited to come on the podcast and even read the book Nearbound is that what you guys, have talked about, and you've kind of thrown this new label on it, Nearbound, right? Everything I've seen is like, oh, these are the thoughts I've been having the last 10 years. I just didn't know anyone else thought this way. I'd never seen anyone put it in those terms of kind of the framework of the era of outbound, then inbound, and now nearbound. That's just completely aligned with my intuitive thoughts of how marketing has just felt over the last 10 years. And finally, I saw someone actually give a label to it. So it all makes perfect sense because, it's just how we've done business. There wasn't any books written about it.
I'm not crazy moment. Like, yeah, I'm not crazy.
Oh, so other people are actually kind of like catching on to this too. Yeah.
So platform marketing, I'm going to just briefly describe, or maybe ask you to describe, but essentially you work with realtors to help them not be so reliant. Most realtors, their typical sort of approach to marketing or obtaining customers is they put a sign in the yard when they have a house for sale. They hope that people see it and ask them to sell their house, or it's just purely word of mouth, which word of mouth is very effective, but it's quite limited. Or they just have like, you know, if you're browsing Zillow or something, and you'll see like maybe like a little ad. It'll be like, here's 5 realtors. Right. And you don't know anything about them.
Right.
They all look the same. I mean, I remember when we were moving to Tennessee, we were looking for houses. And it's like, find a realtor to help you. And they had like 6 different names and logos listed. I have no particular affinity for any one of these brands.
Zillow,
Remax, Coldwell Banker.
No one cares.
They've built no trust with me. They're all the same. The people I don't know any of them. You know the guy that I chose? I just randomly was like, I'm going to click on this guy. Because he actually he said, don't be afeared, trust the beard. And he had like a silhouette of his beard. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. It's different.
Right.
Like, but that's about the best you can hope for.
That was like the extent of the research that you did as a B2B, like VC funded SaaS professional.
To go make a purchase that's larger than any I've ever made in my life. That's going to be where my family spends all of our time. And frankly, what alternative did I have? There's not really any better way to gain information. So you've kind of tried to train realtors to think differently about this. Give me your like sort of what is your pitch to realtors about how they should approach this and what you help them with?
So like most agents, if they're going to spend money on paid marketing, goes to Zillow. And Zillow, like the analogy I use, Zillow is basically Tinder for real estate agents, where you just like you said, you swipe through and it's like, oh, I like this one. And you don't have any context. It might have 4-star or 5-star, a little paragraph about them, and you can read some reviews. But like, that's not giving you context. And I think people are just burned out on reading reviews. It's also one of the things I've seen you and Jared talk about that, you know, maybe 5 to 7 years ago, there was a golden age of reviews where it actually meant something. But now people know that like you can easily kind of like
4.7 star standard.
Exactly.
5 is fishy. 4.5 is too low.
I even tell people when they're leaving reviews for us or for a book I've written or whatever, like don't leave a 5-star review. It'd actually be a lot more meaningful if you left a 4-star review and sprinkle in some stuff you didn't like so it feels real, you know? So yeah, like that's where most agents are spending their money is they're buying leads from Zillow. And when you even use the phrase buying leads, you've essentially commoditized a lead to the point that it's a deliverable. It's a product. Like this name and email is just a product to be bought and sold. The way that you go to the store and you buy apples, you know. So we teach people build your own orchard, you know, grow your own leads the old-fashioned way, cultivate relationships, be famous in your community, like become the digital mayor of your town. All this stuff that's not groundbreaking.
What's that? Right? Become the digital mayor of your town?
Yeah.
I love that one.
It's not groundbreaking ideas. Yet real estate is this industry where like local residential real estate, right? So we're not working with like hotshot commercial brokers. It's like the random mom who's 40 years old and sells 20 houses a year, right? That's our ideal client, and she wants to sell 30 or 40 houses a year, right? With the amount of money that is sloshing around in the real estate industry, the tech and marketing sophistication is abysmal. So most agents, like I said, if they do anything at all, they're buying Zillow leads. They're certainly not doing anything creative to build a brand, stay top of mind with their existing database, get more referrals. They all just kind of wing it.
I have noticed, and I've lived in many cities, that realtors fall into sort of one or two camps. One is, well, I just sort of wait for word of mouth to happen. Or maybe they do the Zillow leads thing where they're just a commodity. There's no distinction between them and anyone else. It's just luck of the draw if someone picks them.
By the way, like Tinder and all these other apps, Zillow leads had a heyday about 5-10 years ago where the CPMS were so cheap that lots of agents made like plural hundreds of thousands.
That was the inbound era, dude.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year with Zillow leads. They had no problem paying Zillow $2,000 a month because they might be making $12,000 a month from those Zillow leads.
Do you remember the golden age of Facebook marketing?
Oh yeah, you'd be like,
where you just pay $5 for a Facebook ad and you just clean up. I mean, it was ridiculous.
We had agents, and I remember in 2015, 2016, like we get them leads for like 50 cents a piece, and it was like your conversion rate might be dog shit. Like you might convert 1 out of 100 leads, 1 out of 200 leads. It's like, well, if every commission you get is $15,000 and your cost per acquisition is $200, like the math works.
There's some
right?
there's some SaaS CFOs.
So
salivating.
it really just tricked, I think, a whole generation of marketers into thinking they were better at
Yes.
marketing than they actually
like,
were.
oh, this is the future. Digital has arrived. Finally,
Yep.
it's so clean and easy. We just have to buy. And so there was kind of that like, hey, you just kind of like play a numbers game. And then there's the types who do sort of what I would call the old fashioned brand marketing
Yeah.
game. Every town has one realtor that has billboards all over town. And they kind of do the like cheesy used car salesman, like sell your home with whatever his name is, right? And that's better than nothing, I guess. You have awareness, you know them. And I guess you can sort of trust if they're willing to spend the money on a billboard, they must be doing quite a bit of sales. So like there's some signaling there that's valuable, but it also feels like, okay, this is kind of that like wheeler dealer. They're probably going to sell my house fast, but like I don't know if I'm going to buy a house. If I want that, I want someone who I feel like knows me, cares about me, will give me good, honest feedback. He's not just trying to get the deal done. When I'm on the buying end, especially, I want someone who's going to be like, you know what? I don't think you want to live in that school district. I think you want to go, right? Like, and that doesn't signal that kind of trust. Maybe it signals one half. Like, if I need to get this thing sold, let's go to this guy. He'll take care of it. But it doesn't signal, this is who I'm going to go to help me choose the next place I'm going to raise my family, you know?
Yeah, it's like if you're going to work with, and I use this example all the time with our agents, like think of something outside of real estate, because so often real estate agents only go to real estate conferences. They're in a real estate agent Facebook groups. You know, they're in the social bubble.
Partnerships people.
Yeah, I mean, like
that's not you, is it?
Totally. Think of something outside of real estate. So like think of financial advisors, right? If there was a financial advisor in your town that just had billboards everywhere, or all the newspapers on the back cover of every weekend had a giant full page, you'd think, wow, this financial advisor really knows what they're doing, right? Let's say you call them, you get the receptionist, and they introduce you to one of the 10 associates there, and you realize like, oh, I'm just being pawned off to some junior associate. I don't actually get to work with that guy, the guy on all the billboards, the guy on the TV ads. He's just basically the CEO of this, and I'm working with some junior kid who got a finance degree 5 years ago and may or may not know what he's doing, right? That's the feeling that I think a lot of people get when they see a realtor who just has billboards everywhere, or just this excellent direct mail campaign. But it's like, okay, do I actually get to work with that agent, or am I going to be pawned off to some buyer's agent or member of their team and never even get to meet this guy, right? So we try to train agents to like do business the old-fashioned way, using updated technology. So using Facebook ads, YouTube, social media, create content, but do business the old-fashioned way, where like all the business still flows through you and you are the superstar. And people feel lucky to get to work with you, but use modern marketing methods to build up that brand to where people essentially feel lucky that they get some of your time. Because that's the difference. Having good marketing as a real estate agent is the difference between having work-life balance and not. And a lot of people get that mixed up. They're like, well, if I have really, really good marketing, then my work-life balance will suffer because I'll have so much inbound, right? So much demand. It's like, it could go that way, but what often happens, at least with our clients, is you have excellent marketing. You have a bunch of videos in your community that are getting 20, 30, 40, 50,000 views. You know, your ads are getting double-digit click rates with Facebook ads, meaning like lots of engagement. And so people feel like they're getting to know you after seeing all these retargeting ads, because they click on something 6 months ahead of time.
Yes.
You know, we're recording this interview technically in, is it May or April right now?
May is tomorrow, April 30th.
All right, let's call it April. So 6 months from now is basically October, right? Like most people clicking on a housing ad, if they're thinking about buying or selling a house, are clicking 6 months ahead of time or more. So the clicks you're getting today predict your pipeline in October, if it's April or May, right? And so when someone clicks on one of those ads, they don't really care about you as the agent yet. They're more so looking for the houses and the neighborhoods and all that. And it's the marketing's job in that situation to make them care about you as an agent.
This is a really interesting point, because the way that the buying cycle goes for houses, there is such a long kind of delay between the first signals you might get, buying signals, and when the purchase happens. And what that means is you can't use product marketing, which means you can't try to sell them the specific house itself.
Absolutely.
Because it won't be on the market.
Exactly.
So when you're trying to do an ad that's buy this house, I just listed it.
I was saying 6 months, just to be clear, in real estate, that's more of like a best case scenario. Usually the clicks happen 12 to 18 months as a leading indicator.
My wife has been browsing various websites for pieces of land for years, and finally it was like, hey, maybe we should actually move to a piece of land. And she had been narrowing it down to different parts of Tennessee and all this stuff. Before we even got to the point where we were seriously looking,
Sure.
she was consuming all that stuff. And so like if you have that long cycle, it takes away, and if we're going to try to make the SaaS analogy, your buyers don't want product marketing yet. They don't want product marketing when they're just becoming problem curious. Right? They're problem curious. Like, I might be moving. I'm thinking about moving. It's possible I'll get this new job. If we move, what kind of houses are available? What are the price ranges? What are the school districts? So if you're hitting them at that point with something that's like, buy this house that I just listed, it's irrelevant. It's not the right time window. They may look at it to get ideas for houses, but that's not going to be that's not that transactional thing. So how do you help those realtors be the person that starts to build trust, become the, what did you call it, the mayor of their digital town?
Yeah, a digital mayor of the town. Mayor like you want town. People to, when they think of Dixon, Tennessee, they think of you. When they think of Wilmer, Minnesota, they think of me, because you just become almost synonymous with your community. You know, a line we'll often say to our clients is, you should be doing with your local marketing as a real estate agent what the Chamber of Commerce should be doing but never does.
Yes.
Actually promote the community, right? Like, actually highlight your favorite businesses. Like, go into your favorite bakery that has like amazing cream cheese, cinnamon rolls, and grab 5 minutes of the owner's time and be like, hey, I want to write an essay about you, and it's about you. It's not about me. Just, I love your cinnamon rolls. Can you tell me what time do you wake up in the morning to make these things? What is the process? Where do you get the cinnamon from? Like, is your dough different than anywhere else? Because I like your cinnamon rolls more than anywhere else, and it's very clear you're not just trucking in frozen product and reheating it in an oven. Tell me about the process of making these. I want to write an essay about it. And then what you do is you just pair that with like a selfie photo of you holding one of the cinnamon rolls, and you write a story about why these are superior to any other baked goods in a 100-mile radius. And it's important that you take an ugly selfie picture. We have to sometimes correct our clients on this.
So you don't have the like Instagram influencer glam sort of
no,
thing?
It's like, I don't want shallow depth of field. Yeah. I don't want perfect lighting. I don't want, zoomed in so you can see the cream cheese frosting. Like, it needs to be a somewhat ugly selfie with minimal depth of field that's obvious that you took with your phone, because they'll sometimes bring in like a professional photographer and they'll be like, hey, take this picture of this. No. Then it looks like an ad, right? We want it to genuinely look like you took a selfie, posted an authentic review.
And these are not paid posts. These are organic posts. They're just posting.
They become paid. So
Got it.
Our strategy in a nutshell is post the type of thing that you would post organically and then run it as a retargeting ad. Because when it pops up in people's feeds, it'll still say sponsored.
Yep.
But if you do it right, people honestly have no idea they're seeing a sponsored post because it looks like an authentic
and because
shout out.
You came at it from the standpoint of selling. This is so cool. It's like category marketing in a tiny niche. If the category is that community, you're not selling yourself. You should work with me. You're selling the category. This community is amazing. Here's this bakery.
Yes.
Here's this school district. Here's this business that I love. Look at the trees. Aren't they beautiful? You want to learn about the history of the town? You become this cheerleader for the category, which is that community. And then you become an expert on that community. And when someone's thinking about moving into that community, who are they going to go to? The expert on that community, the trusted expert. And you get that expertise by elevating all the other voices in that community and showing them some love. We call it make them famous, right?
Yes.
So you're doing, and I've seen you guys do this with your clients where you will actually go and say, we want to write a post about a local pizza restaurant in this community that gets into everything about how they make pizza and how cool it is. And it's not about the realtor.
It has nothing to do with the real estate agent.
And it's like free advertising for that restaurant.
There's no like awkward call to action at the end. Yes. There's no PS. I'm a real estate agent. If you know anyone thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, here's my cell phone number.
And what you're doing is right out of the Nearbound book. You're doing partner marketing. You're partnering with that pizza joint, but you're doing it what we call permissionless. Like, hey, you don't have a formal agreement with the pizza place. You're literally just giving them love for free. That's probably driving business to them. Worst case, they're like, what's this? This is random, and they ignore it or they don't notice it. Best case, they're like, whoa, that's really cool. They've got some affinity, some love for that realtor. They're going to start saying, oh, I love that person.
Yep.
They did this great post about us on LinkedIn. It was so cool. We have people come in and tell us it's because of the LinkedIn post.
We have clients, not even every year, every month.
Everyone in the community starts saying nice things about you.
Yeah,
right?
that like, I didn't get any direct ROI from this essay I wrote about the cinnamon rolls at such and such bakery. And then 2 months later, they're like, you're not going to believe this. The owner of the bakery came to me and referred their brother to me who's selling his house.
Yep.
It's like, well, yeah, duh. You built up that much goodwill with them that of course you're going to get referrals.
And
so
in your business with that commission, it's like, cool. How much was that ad? How much was that one thing that you kind of wrote and helped them run, right?
Yeah. You know, if you do this every month, this is what we tell our agents, do a post like this every month about a local pizzeria, a local bakery, coffee shop, CrossFit gym, whatever, right? Any sort of small business. Could be a church. We've had agents do write-ups on their churches about 5 reasons I love this church. And it's their church, obviously. And they talk about the 5 reasons they love this church, or they'll do a post about 3 churches to check out if you're moving to such and such and looking for, and they will go talk to the pastors and be like, hey, I'm doing this post. What soundbite do you want me to include? I'll give you a paragraph of like a pitch of why you want people to check out your church. Yeah. What's unique about your faith community, whatever. And then they'll do this post. They'll, of course, tag all the churches. And what happens is those churches share the post. And so their members see the ad, and they're basically doing free advertising.
They're
for the
building
realtor.
an ecosystem. They're saying, hey, let's all grow together.
And again, there's no call to action for the realtor in any of this. The only thing even indirectly linking it back to the real estate agent is technically these posts are coming from their Facebook page, but there's no mention of their services or even their cell phone number.
So the goal is people are liking this content, valuing it, associating it with this community. If they're interested in this community, they're going to follow this account.
Yeah.
So now they're a follower. So now you've got that trust.
Okay, like let's like not make this more complicated than it is. This is just what social media used to be before ads.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
So we're just putting the social back into social media. It's almost like once the ads manager, I think it was in 2012, 2013 when Facebook ads became a thing, you started to be able to advertise in the newsfeed.
When I noticed it was when they made, because turning on ads wasn't really that big of a deal. Like that was huge from a business standpoint. It was good for like you could buy, attention easily.
Yeah.
But what really killed the social component for me was when they made it so that anything other than a personal account literally could not be seen in a
got
newsfeed
like no reach
unless you paid. And so, because I had like page, like a couple different pages, a company page for Praxis, that thing people loved it. They wanted it in their feed. And there were pages I followed that were not individual people, but there were pages, not even always company. I wanted that content. All of a sudden, could never see it unless they paid. And most of these were just like, casual groups, nonprofits that weren't going to pay for ads. And that's when it was like, well, now my feed is either only people that I personally know or companies that have paid. I want that in between. I want to follow so anyway.
And that's why I think it caused this situation where kind of rapidly when that happened, when Facebook took away the free organic reach, right? Like you have to pay to play, right? Because at the end of the day, like Facebook, we use these phrases like social media or Web 2.0, Web 3.0, whatever. And I always tell clients like Facebook is just newspaper advertising in the 21st century. Yes. Facebook is where people go to get news.
It's the newspaper and the barbershop combined.
Yes, like the only difference is that there's technically engagement. There's comments and stuff on posts, but like whatever would have worked in newspaper advertising in 1954 is going to work on Facebook now. So don't categorize it as this new thing like social media is radically new. It's like, no, it's the same technology just on a computer essentially, right? So when that happened, call it 10 years ago-ish, that shift that you just described, people forgot to be social because it came, okay, how do we plan this funnel from the top down? Like
algo simping.
Like you guys mentioned, Hayek in your book about like this fallacy of thinking that you can plan an economy from the top down. You can't really do that with a marketing funnel either. You maybe could for a couple years, but even
it looks
then,
so nice on a whiteboard.
Right? Let's mastermind together with the whiteboard and draw giant upside down triangles to show how smart we are. I think there was maybe a couple years, at least in our industry, it would have been like 2014, 2015, 2016, and even into 2017, CPMs were so cheap that it gave marketers the illusion that they were smarter than they were. And
the marketers got to get lazy.
And that they could plan things that they couldn't actually plan. So this is like classic,
Yes,
Hayek,
they
right?
thought marketing was a science experiment where you just like tweak the dial. It's like, it's a machine.
Yep. We need more top of funnel content. We need to boost the mid funnel. We need to do more.
Tweak this here, tighten this here.
We need more, conversion ads at bottom of funnel.
And what does that make the customer, by the way? Right? It makes them like a freaking additive, like motor oil. They're a throughput. Right. They're a widget to be processed.
There's this, famous.
Like who wants to be fed down a funnel?
Yeah, there's this David Ogilvy quote from 1950s, right? And he said, like, the customer is not a moron. The customer is your wife. So people think that their potential clients' customers are morons. And I like to think when I'm crafting ads, like this is probably my most useful litmus test when I'm writing copy or even just thinking strategically about what does our funnel look like, for lack of a better term. What mental process do I go through when I'm researching a company? And I'm different than everyone, obviously, but what I go through is a lot of research. I probably overanalyze. I'm looking for information. I don't want to download a salesy case study. Like, I'm not going to do that, right? Because everyone knows when you download a case study from whatever company.
We're going to cherry pick.
We're just going to tell this unrealistically, biased narrative.
No,
right?
That's like, you should buy a lotto ticket because this guy won the lotto, right?
Yeah. Like, you want to seek out as much information as possible, ideally in as unbiased of a way.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm going to be like, I know guys like you exist, so I don't want to do all that. I'm just going to ask you. I'll be like, Tim, I'm sure you did your homework. You tell me.
you do that too, right? But like from the perspective of content marketing, to the extent that that's even a thing, I think people need to put out more content that's not marketing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Well, so
more content, less marketing.
I want to ask you how you kind of came into, and maybe it's always been there and I just missed it, but there seems to have been a shift where, like, I remember in the early days of platform, you were doing, I think, really good demand creation, high hanging fruit, like inbound style marketing, where someone would maybe Google search for, houses in Topeka, Kansas, and your clients, you would actually help them write a book or a guide, like the ultimate guide to buying a house in Topeka, Kansas. And phenomenal, great way to build trust, to be the authority, to tap into a lot of these. But I don't think, at least to my memory, that it pulled in these other voices. It didn't have that nearbound. It was more of a straight inbound play. It wasn't like today where you're having your clients do, Facebook posts about a donut shop or whatever in town. Tell me about that transition.
We are like, I can.
That's the how economy. How do I buy a house here?
Yeah.
Here's the best information. The who economy is like, who
do I go to?
Who do I trust? And right. So it seems like I've watched that happen with your shift in strategy a little bit, or your tactics maybe.
Yeah. So the reason that I so passionately criticize like bro marketers of the last 10 years, who, like, I'll say this over and over again, like, cheap CPMs made dumb marketers in the same way that cheap interest rates make dumb investors.
Yep.
And bull crypto markets make
stupid crypto projects.
Yeah, they think that
meme coins.
Yeah, like, I bought such and such coin and it went up, therefore I'm a crypto expert. Like, everyone looks like a genius in a bull market, right? That was absolutely true of marketing in the 2010s because CPMs were so cheap, not just on Facebook but across platforms, that it gave a lot of advertising guys like this false sense of security and false sense of competence that you actually knew what you were doing. It's like, no, your ads were incredibly inefficient. It's just that when you were getting clicks for 5 pennies, the math works in most businesses if it's coming in that cheap, top of funnel. And now that it's not that way, and your clicks might be $1 or $2 or $5 or $10 a click, not a lead, but a click, right?
Yeah.
You actually have to have an efficient marketing strategy that's not just being subsidized by how cheap it is. So I think I can criticize all that because that was absolutely me. Like, the way we did business 10 years ago is very different than how we do it now. Where back then it was just generate a shit ton of leads.
And it worked, right?
It worked.
Exactly.
It absolutely worked.
That's the main thing. Is like, things have changed. You can't afford to do it the old way. Even though it used to work, you got to shed a tear and wave goodbye.
We had clients in 2015, whatever, that were literally getting a 20-to-1 ROI off of working with us. It was like, they pay platform $1, they get 20 back. Right? Like, it was nuts.
Yeah.
Because Facebook ads were so cheap.
You're like Jerome Powell. You're just a money printing
it was. I mean,
honestly,
it was. We had clients, like, I should probably use this in our marketing, but we had clients coming to me for tax advice that were like, you've helped me make so much money. I've never made
I'm
this
a rich
much money
person
before.
now. What do I do?
What do I do with it? Like, actually, like, they didn't have the concept of a financial advisor or tax strategies because that had never been a problem they had dealt with.
Yeah.
We had clients quit, Isaac, back in those days because we made them so much money in a year that it just never occurred to them. Again, they'd never made this much money before, that if I make more money, I need to set aside more in taxes. So maybe they were used to, on a quarterly basis, setting aside $5,000 a month or $5,000 a quarter for taxes, right? Well, if we quadruple your income, you need to be setting aside then $25,000 a quarter, not $5,000 a quarter. They'd get to April and their account would be like, you need to write the IRS a check for $65,000. You've only paid in 15 and you need to send them 65 grand. And they'd be like, what? Like they had no concept of if you make more money, you have to set aside
So
more.
they came at you with pitchforks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like they would come to us like, what do I do? I need a good tax guy. I need like, so we had clients who had that problem. That's how nuts these times were. So think like The Big Short, but real estate agents with Facebook ads. It was nuts. Now, clicks cost more because CPMs are not $5, they're $25 or they're $50 or, in a lot of these markets for real estate agent ads. So the actual narrative and the brand building efficacy of the ads has to be like top notch.
Yep.
You have to be able to create what I call fuzzy ROI. I'm sure that you guys have different concepts for that. I use the phrase fuzzy ROI of like, if you hire a platform to do your marketing as a real estate agent in, like you said, Topeka, Kansas, very rarely do people convert leads anymore that turn into business from a PDF download, and then they scheduled an appointment, and then they replied to an email autoresponder that was part of the sequence, and now I'm helping them buy a house, or now I'm helping them sell a house, and it came from this ad, and they opted into this email, and like you almost never can map it out anyways the way that you used to in 2014, 2016.
What, dark social, dark funnel?
Dark funnel, yep.
What it is just real life happening.
Exactly.
And real life doesn't fit into marketing attribution software.
Exactly.
So like we talk about this when you partner with other businesses and you're running your Nearbound Marketing, no one's going, wow, this business just said nice things about Reveal. I'm going to click on this UTM tracking link and then immediately book a demo. And then it will get logged that I became a customer because of this partner. No one behaves that way. Right. They're like, wow, this person said really nice things about Reveal. A couple months go by, they start following our content. Ooh, this is really interesting stuff. They start they see more stuff on LinkedIn. Eventually they're like, oh, I think we need something that solves this problem. I think Reveal does that. They Google Reveal, show up, Google gets credited. I was like, oh, it's a SEO, whatever. But all those conversations,
attribution.
Yeah, exactly. All those conversations, all those things are happening, and you only find out about it if you're lucky. So, like, we'll look at our call recording software when people get on with a salesperson,
or whatever,
and try to look at if they mention things. Yep. Like, do they mention the name of a partner? Who are they mentioning? We'll ask them, how did you hear about us, and who do they mention? That doesn't get it all, but at least gives you a pulse. Like when that person happened to tell you, because the bakery owner happened to tell them that they referred their brother. That happens all the time with nobody telling anybody.
Correct. So
it's happening. So like if you can present the causal chain, and this is what the Austrian economics is. It's like it's a logical sequence of things that follow one another, and it's not this many units moved here and then it caused this many units, but it's more about causality. Like all else being equal, if this person values this more than this, they're going to choose this, and then if they choose that, this is going to follow. And if that's logical, that's good enough. That's good marketing. Do the thing that's logical, even if you can't attribute it.
So when you look at the ads that either we run for realtors or we run for ourselves, when you think you can track everything, you kind of overemphasize the specific granular metrics of a given ad. There's an ad that I wrote, a year ago that I thought was
By the way, Tim is an amazing copywriter, like world class. That is your superpower.
Yeah, I will not humble brag. I am a pretty good copywriter.
You've managed to turn it into this incredible business empire, but like that is your super skill.
It is. I'm
to this day, the most effective marketing email I've ever had across the last 5 companies I've started or been in? It's one that you wrote.
Which one was it?
It was literally like we had a guide to education with Praxis in the early days, and you said, I didn't even know anything about, I was just learning about basic inbound stuff. This was like 2013. And you're like, you've got this guide to rethinking higher education. It's really good for people who are interested in the program. When people download it, you need an email that comes from you personally, Isaac, that just asks them in one line a yes or no question that helps you qualify them. And I was like, okay. And it's like, hey, saw you downloaded the guide. Quick question. Are you in college? And that question was so perfect because it teased out everything we wanted to know and got a conversation started over email. It had like a 50% response rate. I got emails constantly with people being like, no, but my grandson's thinking about it.
They had no idea.
They give you their life story. And then I would reply in person. But to this day, I have been trying to emulate what you did with that one email.
We do like the same thing with our agents. We'll send out an autoresponder that a lot of towns have a college, but especially if it's a college town. Like if you're in like Tuscaloosa, right? We would send out an auto email for a realtor there that it doesn't matter what they're signing up for. If it's information on a listing, whatever, like the same email works. It's, so are you from the Tuscaloosa area or did you go to UA ? because you would never think that was an auto email.
Right.
Because a marketer would not write an email like that. So again, even when it comes to email copywriting, I ask myself, does this look or feel like an ad, or does it look or feel like a human?
Yeah.
Right. And like if you put that human element back into everything, your ads are just way, way more effective.
So I derailed you though. You said you wrote a ad one time.
Oh yeah. So like when we look at our stack of ads, right, in our Facebook account, we're running dozens of ad sets in a given time, right? And sometimes I look at an ad and I'm like, man, when I wrote that ad, like, I thought that was really good. Like I have a pretty developed intuition about this now, and I'm not right every time. No marketer is. I actually have a framed photo of like Ted Williams from his 400 season in my office, because it's just a reminder that like the greatest hitter of all time and the greatest season of all time still got out 60% of the time.
Yep.
Like, and it's the only
baseball is the best for that.
Yeah, like only batter ever to hit 400 in a season. He still got out technically more than
my son is 7 and he plays Little League, and we've started going to Rays games. He's getting into baseball, and he's just at that point where he's like, "Is this guy a good hitter?" I'm like, "Yeah, he bats like 330." He's like, "What's that?" I said, "It means he gets a hit 1 out of every 3 times he comes at bat." He was like,
"That's good."
He's like, "That's it?" He's like, "Dad, I get a hit like every time." I'm like, "You're on a pitching machine and you're 7, okay?" Yeah. But like trying to get it through your head in baseball, right? So
also, there's been this is a total side conversation, but like, have you noticed that there's a complete decline in batting averages in the last 10 to 15 years? You can win a batting title now with a 315, 320 average, and it used to be to like be in contention for a batting title, you have to hit 340, 350.
Oh yeah. Why do you, totally aside, do you think that, maybe it's not an aside, do you think that is sort of managing to what you measure, this like obsession with OPS, slugging, Moneyball type stuff?
It absolutely is, because it's similar to what like Steph Curry did to basketball, where executives and these like analytics nerds just realized, wait, like the expected value of every 3-point shot is higher than the
Have you seen those shot map charts?
Yes, exactly.
Where it's like they used to have the entire floor,
and now it's just the corners
3-point
and then
right at the hoop. You know?
So it's just the expected value being that you're not going to make, a good 3-point shooter hits, let's say, like 40% of 3-point shots. Well, they're worth 50% more.
Yeah.
And so the shooting percentage is pretty close to the same, but one shot's worth 50% more. It's basic math that you should take.
Do you ever play pickup games where guys do 1s and 2s? Because then the 3 is literally double. Yeah. It's the stupidest thing ever, because like you could play so hard and so well, and like that one guy who sits in the corner and just hits like 1 out of 4 threes, just wrecks the whole game.
Yeah, so it's that dynamic, but also pitchers are pitching for strikeouts more than ever, because the same thing happened to pitching.
Interesting.
In that they realized pitching for a strikeout has a higher expected value than pitching for ground balls or pitching for fly balls, and so these two philosophies clashed, and basically batters realized, well, trying to hit for average doesn't have the expected value per at bat than trying to swing for a home run does. And so teams would rather pay guys to hit 40 dingers a year and bat 240 than someone who hits 340 and hits 10 home runs a year.
Okay, I promise we're done with this topic, but now you just made me realize I want to seriously, there's so many great analogies with baseball and marketing, because even though those things are true and they're not necessarily bad, like trying to optimize for those things, what happens in the playoffs, in the clutch? What happens when it really matters is those statistics suddenly matter less than some intangible thing. The fuzzy ROI comes into play.
The Anthony Edwards.
Right. Why is Derek Jeter so great? Is it his stats? Right? There's something different in there. Anyway, well, so I derailed this like 3 times. You wrote an ad one time. You thought it was amazing.
This is what happens when Isaac and Tim start talking on a podcast. I do the same thing on my podcast, where I just derail. All of a sudden, we're talking about baseball analytics. Like, wait, I thought this was a marketing podcast. So I wrote this ad, and I've developed, I said, this intuition over the years where, like, I'm wrong more than I'm right, but I have a pretty good idea when I think, like, this ad's going to be good, even before it spends $1, right? And I was just confident. I wrote this such and such ad. I'm like, this is going to be good. And it just wasn't. Like, the click rate was not just below average, it was way below average. And I'm looking at like, this is a good ad. I know if people see this ad, it'll build warm fuzzies towards our brand. I would be influenced by this. I was just dead set that like this ad has got to be a positive part of the stack. I 100% believe what you said. You shouldn't attribute success to one, ad set or anything like that, because it's the cumulative effect of seeing a bunch of ads. But even then, in that context, I'm like,
Yeah,
this ad
you
is
know enough to know.
This ad is an effective part of that sequence. Why is the click rate like 1%? And I kept it running because I trust my gut. I'm like, I'm going to keep it running, even though the numbers are actually disagreeing with me. And this is where I think numbers don't always tell the story, right? That I looked at the ad and I had this light bulb moment one day of like, oh, well, the reason it's not getting clicks is because the ad was short enough and the image explained everything that you could digest everything there was in the ad.
All the value was there.
Without clicking on it.
Yep.
You didn't have to click to read more. And it was at that moment I realized like, okay, that all makes perfect sense now, that like I didn't leave anything hiding behind a read more, see more, or the image wasn't one of those like bait and switch where what's going on in this image? I need to click to find out. It was
to do that, like you have to think and play the long game and realize that building trust and being seen as the mayor of your digital town is more valuable than those numbers that seem so attractive. Those can tell you things, but those aren't the goal. Those are supposed to be signposts to help you reach the goal.
Yep.
And I see this on LinkedIn. It drives me crazy because similarly, engagement is rewarded. If someone clicks the read more, that counts as engagement. So more engagement, theoretically it gives you more eyeballs. But so you'll notice people sharing like a video and then writing everything that's in the video like way longer than it needs to be, just so that it ensures people have to click read more.
Yes.
And I'm like, there's a line, you can play around with the algo to a degree, but there's some point where you can feel someone's algo simping. They're no longer thinking about the value they can deliver to you. They're thinking about how to get you to give them engagement metrics so they can look at that number and celebrate.
That destroys
You feel
trust.
used. You feel used.
Yeah, I'm way less likely to do business with you now if I feel like that's the way that you do marketing.
Yep.
So yeah, like as I think about these ads, both for platform as well as the agents that we do, I'm thinking what would build trust? Like if I was the client or the consumer or the prospect, the customer, or whatever, what kind of content would I want to see that would make me more likely to purchase from you? So like, I think that's one of my strengths is that I'm not a real estate agent. So, and I tell this to our clients, like your ads will be better than ads that other people write because Tim is not a real estate agent. So I'm writing ads.
I'm your target market.
Yes. Like from
the
perspective, I know enough about real estate to be dangerous, obviously, but like, I'm writing ads from the perspective of what I would click on if I was in the market to buy or sell a house. And that makes our ads, I think, just much more human sounding while at the same time having the substance that they need to, be trustworthy.
So I'm going to bring this home. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish we had more time because I realized there's this whole story that you launched John Galt Mortgage Company not that long ago. And the fact that you have all of these customers who are realtors with platform and realtors to them, a mortgage company, they're all basically the same. To most consumers, are all the same. You have some distinguishing things, but you have this pre-built network of like partners potentially. And I know we've had some really interesting conversations. I think I've even referenced it on this podcast about how, or in the Nearbound Daily at least, how it was like not as simple as you thought to just be like, cool, I'll just tell the realtors to tell people about John Galt Mortgage. Boom, we got distribution. We're in every market that our realtors are in. Because fundamentally, and this is what many partner programs face, to that partner, they're like, so what? Here's you and every other vendor.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Why am I going to give you leads?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And you're like, oh, what they really care. And then we could create programs where we reward them or send them a hat. And there's some legal restrictions in the mortgage market. You can't like pay them directly or anything. But yeah, maybe that pushes them. But really, you're like, they want us to send them leads, which is exactly what every partner manager says. Like, if you're like sending them business,
they will like reciprocate.
Totally. Like, so that lesson we didn't even get into, but I want to end with this story you were just telling me that, again, this is the who economy, this is the Nearbound stuff, that you kind of tapped into recognition of working with people that your potential customer, which are realtors, already trust. And you've started to tap into, and I don't know if this is a new marketing strategy for you, but like conferences and events where different sort of niches and communities, a sort of community, Nearbound community exists. There was a female realtors association thing that you just did a deal with, and that like blew it up. Give me like a quick synopsis of that story, and then we'll bring it home.
All right, it's going to be hard to make this quick, but I'll try. Because it honestly, I've told this to our whole like leadership team over the last week. What's happened in my life and my business in the last like 2 weeks has fundamentally altered how I think about marketing.
Would you say it's because you read Nearbound and the Rise of the Who Economy?
No, like in all seriousness, it's like
this book is guaranteed to double your business.
No, it's like divine intervention that I read that book like 2 weeks ago, I think. I was sitting at the Delta Lounge and who knows what airport, I can't even remember now. And I read the book because I had like a 4-hour layover. So all these ideas, because I had recently read the book, were like fresh in my mind. So it's just like a pure coincidence that I had this like Nearbound experience that, so while all these ideas were fresh in my mind. So long story short, we sponsored this like female kind of boss babe realtor conference. There's 500 fairly top producing agents, all female. Obviously, like men are not allowed in this conference. I think it was me and maybe one of the women's, like one of the leaders of it, her spouse was there. But it was like, I am the only dude I am in this entire conference, right? It's because we sponsored it, you know. So as part of the sponsorship, we got a 15-minute pitch from stage, and then also an email that goes out to all their attendees. I think an email list of like 10,000 people, something like that. As well as, you know, our banners are around, whatever. So pretty typical sponsorship package. I asked them ahead of time, like, hey, I don't really want to pitch from stage for 15 minutes because I've been an attendee at conferences where someone like the headline sponsor comes and pitches and you just kind of like go on your phone for 15 minutes. You are absolutely not paying attention. I asked, like, can I have 30 minutes? And I'm not asking 30 minutes for an extended pitch. Can I have 30 minutes and actually give a value-added presentation that doesn't even mention platform, but just shares marketing information? Like, if you don't have an hour for me, that's fine. I'm sure you already have speakers lined up, but can I have half an hour? And if you can agree to that, I'll become your headline sponsor for this event. And they were like, okay, yeah, that seems fair. Let's do it. So as part of it, they sent out an email ahead of time to their like 10,000 ladies that are part of this. And the email that we were going to come up with at first was just like really bad. It was really salesy, just typical bullet points of features and benefits of here's why you should hire platform marketing. The kind of email that even if you open it, you immediately delete because there's no value in it whatsoever. Kind of comes off as like ChatGPT wrote it. I crafted an email that made it sound like it was coming from the founder of this kind of like...
By the way, this is the number one Nearbound content marketing skill is learn to write in other people's voice. And then you can send it to them and say, hey, would you mind sharing this? I wrote it for you.
That's 100%
in
what
your
I did.
voice. Yeah.
Like, and I think they removed one sentence and otherwise it was verbatim what I wrote. And what the email said, it wasn't salesy, wasn't like a promotional pitch. It was basically, hey, you may have seen us mention platform marketing on social media because they had been mentioning us being a sponsor. What I wanted you to know is that they only work with one agent per market and they're expecting a lot of the markets at this conference will sell out. It's first come, first serve. If you want to reserve your market before someone else does, here's the link. Otherwise, if you wait to the conference, we don't want people to be upset that their market was taken. So if you want to kind of jump the line, here's a link. That's all it said. There wasn't any pitch. It was basically just letting them know they only work with one person per market. And if you want to sign up, like, here's how you can get more information. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
Within 24 hours of that email going out, I was at dinner with one of our clients actually before the event. And my phone started blowing up of our salesperson, like, what happened? We just got 100 leads in the last hour. And then she texts me back as we're like getting dessert and finishing the meal. It's now 200 leads. And then I messaged her on Slack the next morning. She's like, we now have 300 leads. So 300 people responded to that email saying like, I want to reserve my market. I want to talk to you. We only work with one agent per market.
Yep.
So we turned down like the vast majority of those leads. But then that combined with the event itself and having several speakers from stage say good things about platform because they're actually our clients.
That's what I wanted to mention because you give your workshop, which you're going to teach
so
great things. That's awesome.
My workshop was on the very last day when 95% of the sales had already come in. So that's the point I want to mention.
Yes.
That like
it's because other people were saying things about you. Yes.
Like I actually can 100% not attribute the sales success of this because of my brilliant half an hour talk.
But if you were a good CEO, you would go back to your team and be like, guys, I gave a talk, 400 leads came in, you're welcome.
Exactly. No, right. Like, but my talk was on the last day. And so why so many leads came in was because, and this is part of the reason,
it's not about you, it's about them. It's about the trust
stream of consciousness. So I apologize. I'm like,
no, this is great. This is great.
This all happened in like the last week and I'm still trying to process, holy shit, what just happened is we sponsored this event because I found out that Kara, one of our top clients, getting incredible results with platform. I found out she was going to be giving a keynote on the first day.
Yep.
And she's like a huge like evangelist to platform. Yes. So I texted her.
So this is not like, parachuting into some community you have no connection to.
No context.
That's important. There's trust that already is established between her and the community.
So I called her ahead of time. I said, Kara, I know you're happy with platform. You've given us testimonials. You've left us like exceedingly positive reviews. Like not just I'm happy with platform, but like exceedingly positive. She's stoked. would you mention platform for like 30 seconds in your talk? And I said, you don't have to. If you have something else planned, I completely respect that. Would you be willing to? She's like, yes. Oh my God, yes. Like, you guys have changed my business. I will absolutely give you a shout out. And I was like, cool. If you're willing to
use
do that,
customers in your marketing.
well, I said, I think I'm going to sponsor this event. If you weren't speaking, I don't think I would sponsor.
Yep.
Because just being another name and another trade booth among 10 others doesn't really move the needle. But if you're willing to give us a shout out from the main stage in front of 500 women where there's no bias, you have ultimate credibility because you're just a realtor, right? You're not working for us. That's awesome. Also, another one of our clients was on a panel, and I wasn't even in the room, but people told me, like, she mentioned platform 5 times on this panel. Like, she constantly was like finding ways.
Isn't that the best, dude? When you go to events and people keep coming up to you and being like, hey, I keep hearing people mention you at these other events, at these other panels and
yes.
stuff.
And then one of the founders,
living in market,
one of the founders of this community of women signed up for platform the week before the event because she honestly wanted to, not because we're like, hey, here's a free membership so we can dangle your endorsement. Like, I told her, like, you're going to pay like anyone else is, because I want to be able to look people in the eye and say, hey, the reason that Jamie is working with us is because she actually thought it was a good value. We did not give her any sort of special discount. So on stage, she then mentioned, by the way, you should sign up for platform marketing because what they do is super cool, blah, 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 blah. So by the time I spoke on the last day of the event, we had already made 40 sales. I mean, we increased the size of our company by 20% in like a week, and that's recurring revenue, right? So we've had to hire 3 full-time people, almost half a dozen part-time people, just to create the capacity to handle all this demand that's coming in. I mean, we added several $1 million to our recurring revenue in 1 week. And so I'm like analyzing, like, okay, I thought I was okay at marketing, and now I'm like, maybe I've been completely blind to this whole time, that we need to really like lean into this and like embrace what you call nearbound, right? Of like, maybe we should stop spending money on some other stuff that was working and go all in on this, because if we can spend A and get B doing nearbound marketing, like, that all of a sudden creates a huge opportunity cost of where we were spending that money before. Like, if this is possible, now that I'm like, my eyes are just, open to this, like, everything I thought I knew about marketing is wrong.
Well, what I love about what you're doing is, like, you were instinctively doing a lot of these things, and now there's more of a deliberate awareness.
Yes.
Of like, oh, the things that have always
Yes.
worked, there's a reason they worked. There's some kind of principles behind it that are repeatable. And I love your story, everything we've gone through, because it's a great reminder that Nearbound is not this strategy out here that's totally, utterly different from everything else. It layers onto your inbound, your outbound, your normal stuff. You're still doing things that would be considered inbound. You're still doing, but just by recognizing that building trust and working with people that the buyer already trusts and reaching them with and through those voices is key. That just unlocks and makes everything so much more efficient.
Yeah, as you said, like, I'm kind of trying to do like a debrief of like, what are the lessons we learned from this, right, with our team right now. And there's so many things that had to be true, like so many like prerequisites that had to be true for this to work out the way that it did, that you can't just copy and paste this. Like, I hope no one's listening to this like, oh, cool, I'm going to sponsor a conference.
Yeah, let's sponsor a conference.
Boom. It's like, no.
Trust me, I've sponsored lots of conferences.
Yeah, exactly. So have we, right? The last conference we sponsored, we made 3 sales, not 50, right? And the reason is there was no one on stage at that conference shouting the praises of platform. There was no email sent out to the attendees ahead of time that wasn't promotional in any way. There was no people in a private Facebook
from
group.
The person who was running the community, not from you.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no social proof baked in. So when we walked into that conference, 99% of the work was already done.
Yeah. That's it.
And we were just there to basically harvest the demand that all of this social proof had created. So now I'm almost thinking,
which is only possible because you had delivered a great product to those customers before. So it's not an overnight thing.
But we were doing that always.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Our product has always
been
good. It's just that now that.
So you recognize the amazing power hidden in your existing ecosystem. Your existing customer base has so much more that you can tap into. These existing communities that are sort of clustered around your customer base. Like, that's that moment when you're like, oh my gosh, Nearbound, it's already here. These are already relationships that I have, and I'm not fully tapping into those when I go to market. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think you and Jared would appreciate this, but I actually told Mitch, who's the president at John Galt, after this last conference where we made so many sales, I'm like, my relationship to like this Nearbound idea, it feels eerily similar to how I felt reading like Atlas Shrugged for the first time, where finally someone is saying things out loud that I have quietly, secretly thought for like years and years, but I thought I was the only person who thought that way. And it took someone else putting it in words like, oh, someone else thinks like me, but they just put it in words that finally you made it concrete, right?
I love it. Well, I can't even remember how we sign off, Jared. Until next time, see you around, Nearbound. It's something like that. We got it all wrong. Tim, thanks so much for joining me on the Nearbound podcast. We'll see you guys next time.